So today our topic is thermal expansion. Some part of thermal expansion we have done in previous session. So we'll continue with thermal expansion, and after that we move on to calorimetry. So all are related to heat and thermodynamics part. Okay. So let's look at this one question, which is from past mains exam, something like this. So you see, basic idea behind all such question is something like this. And this question involves two things. It involves one is effect of temperature. So how do we understand a thermal expansion? Thermal expansion is extremely simple thing. What should come to your mind due to change in temperature? We write delta L. Delta L is equal to L alpha delta theta. That's the thermal expansion. And in this, we can call delta L by L is a strain. So this is one part. This is effect of temperature, and this is the key part of effect of temperature. And similar way, we have delta A and delta B. Alpha, beta, gamma. Beta is twice alpha, and gamma is 3 alpha. So this is one part, and this another way we can this another way we can produce change in dimension, that is using force. So this is due to temperature and due to force. The force also we done, that is part of if force is applied along the length, that's part of the Young's modulus. So there also we come across change in L is equal to F into L divided by AY, and area being the cross section. So there are some questions where both the things are combined. So the change in length is change in dimension is being produced by temperature effect, and change in dimension being also produced by the force effect. So here also I can take change in length. Either there are two ways I can interpret this relationship. One way to interpret is find out change in length based on the original length dimension, or I can find out fractional change in length. Fractional change in called strain. So here also strain fractional change in length is equal to what here? Alpha delta theta. So fractional change in length does not depend on the original dimension. It only depends on material property and change in temperature. Similar way here also what we find, this is the strain being produced by the force. What is the strain in this case equal to? Change in length divided by length, that is equal to stress by stress. This is equal to, either I can write F by AY. Actually F by A is one time stress by Y. So let's see. So there's a question which are combination of thermal effect and force effect. Okay, so let's understand elastic modulus. So there's a steel rail of length, and it can come in any form. As a length is given, area of cross section is given. It is prevented from expanding along its length while its temperature rises by 10 degrees centigrade. Okay, so let's try and understand. I think one question enough to understand the basic concept here. So just imagine any object with something which has any either circular cross section. It can have any other shape of cross section. That is immaterial. Cross section shape is not important. So suppose we take any piece of metal or any solid object. See, each temperature, it has a natural length. It has a natural length. Something similar to spring. So it has some natural length at 0 degrees centigrade. It will have some natural length at 20 degrees centigrade, but 20 degrees centigrade, the natural length will not be same. It will be slightly longer. So each temperature at a natural length, basically natural length changes, and that's what we study here. So if it is free to expand, as the temperature is raised, its length will increase. So it has different length, and each case here also, if it is free, it means when temperatures increase, there's no stress here. No stress. We are not preventing it to expand or contract. So when the temperature is raised by delta to 20 degree, the length has increased a little bit. Okay. So what it says, if suppose now imagine this is something that is free, it is kept on a frictionless surface, we change the temperature, the length changes, and we can calculate effect of temperature. Now what happens, suppose this rod is fixed between two walls, and this what happens in many kinds of building structures. So if you have a rod which is at 0 degree and it is fixed between walls, two surfaces of the walls, and at 0 degree there's no stress in the rod, so it is at a natural length. So basically I get a piece of rod which is at 0 degree centigrade. It is in natural length, and its length is exactly between distance between the wall. I fix it, it has no stress. Now when the temperature rises, see what would happen, it would have tried to expand, but now it is not free. Why it is not free? Now wall does not allow it to expand. How does it prevent its expansion? By applying a compressive force. So the two equal and opposite effects are taking place here. So what is the force it will apply? The force it will apply will be such that strain or increase in length produced by temperature is equal and opposite to decrease in length produced by compressive force. Both have to be equal and opposite. Or other way of saying is thermal strain and longitudinal stress strain should be equal and opposite. And that's a very easy way to understand here. So two strains are equal. What are two strains? Thermal strain alpha delta theta has to be equal to strain produced by compressive force. And what is that strain is equal to F by AY. That's a simple equation. And if you understand basically fractional change in length by two effects are equal. And we have written the magnitude in terms of direction. We should understand when temperature rises, force will be compressive. If temperature falls, force will be tensile. It will try to extend it. So very simple, we just substitute and it can come in different forms. We should just understand this how it is. We are just equating strain here. Okay, increase in length due to temperature increase is equal to decrease in length due to compressive force. And thus the equation we write, either we change in length or equate strain. I prefer the strain is much easier way to understand. Okay, this is another pretty decent question which has come in mains, and see, this is something when this question came in the examination, it was a relatively different way presented, and it may stump many people many times. Let's understand what this question is. This question is related to a pendulum of a uniform wire cross section A. So whenever any pendulum, whether it's a string or most cases, let's imagine it's made of some metal wire. So it has a pendulum here. Metal wire has certain length, and we attach a mass here. And this and we take this L and this mass M, and we calculate time period. So this wire has some cross section A, and we mass M is hanging here. It has certain time period. What has happened when additional mass of capital M? So in this case, what is the change made? Just try and understand what is the change made and what effect it will have on my solution of the question. Now, what is mass here? Now, mass has been changed from M to this is the new mass. Extra mass capital M has been added. The time period changes. Now, when we read the question first time, it may come to our mind, okay, time period is independent of mass. T is equal to 2 pi root L by G. So why is the time period changing? The mass doesn't come anywhere in the equation. But very clearly, you notice here, Young's modulus is given. So immediately what we should understand here, as we attach a mass here, mass will change its length, it will produce extension. And as the length changes, time period will change. Rest all is very simple. Let's apply this case here. So what we need to find, the time period changes to Tm. So this is the time period T corresponding to length L here. And this time period when extra mass M is added, time period changes. And we need to find the equation. So these options were given, but let's see, I have not written those options which have come in the examination. This also is a recent main question. Why does time period change? That is first thing we should come to our mind. And time period will change because as we add the weight here, if we take in account change in length, then time period will change. Due to change in length, it changed because change in length of the wire. So, so what will be increase in length here? L dash in change in length. So change in length will be equal to mgl by ay. So this is actually L dash indicates change in length of the wire. So L dash indicates change in the length of wire. L was the original length. So how is time period related to length? I can write that Tm by T square is equal to L dash by L square. But basically, sorry, this is something in this case, L dash is Lm. This is something. Sorry, again, just a small point here. This is something we are talking about, a change in time period. The change in time period is Tm. So if the relationship is T is equal to 2 pi root L by G, how do we write for a small change? We write a small change delta T by T is equal to, either I can write delta T by T is equal to 1 by 2 delta L by L. Okay. Okay, so in this case, what is it, delta T? Delta T is my Tm here. So delta T is Tm and original time period is T. That will be equal to 1 by 2 delta L by L. And yes, Vignesh?
Sir, how is Tm the like delta T? It should be the final
Sorry,
T value, right?
this it. Just a second. I think this not time period changes, not change in real time. So basically, in this case, this is see just one minute. And so this is something. If the question is many times, if we question is about many times we solve question where the question is of this nature. When a small change, we take this. When we take this ratio, we calculate delta. What is in this question? Why this answer is little different? Because in this question, they are not asking change in time period. This becomes the new time period. So when a new time period is given, I cannot use this one. So that's why when a new time period is given, then T is like this, and Tm will be equal to 2 pi root of L dash by G. So in that case, my equation becomes Tm by T square will be equal to what? It will be equal to L dash by L. And what will be L dash by L? L dash will be equal to L plus delta L by L. And how much is L plus delta L? L plus delta L is equal to L 1 plus what is L plus delta L? L plus delta L, can write L plus mg L by Ay by L. So that is Tm by T square. So Tm by T whole square is this expression, which equal to 1 plus mg by, sorry, this is Ay, mg by Ay. So this was very simple equation, and they found the value of y. What is the value of y? We can easily obtain the value from this expression. So this question, but there are two ways it can come. One, it can come if it comes, what is the change in time period? If it is change in time period, this is the way we solve. If the question asked is not change in time period, is asked about what is the new time period Tm, then we have to take the ratio. So, and this was the question, this was not the question. But once this question has come, it may come in different form. So if the question asked is about what is the change in time period, this is how we'll calculate. And since the question was what is the new change time period, this is the way we solve. Ignish, is this question answered? Understood?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so both ways it can come, and we need to look at what is being asked here. Next one is something like volume expansion. And just pay attention, this is where actually the thermometer works. See, volume of bulb of mercury thermometer. So this is, you notice this is how the thermometers are. You notice a bigger volume here, and it is followed by a kind of capillary. Capillary is we also use a word called stem. Stem is something, a capillary of a small cross section, very small radius. So volume of bulb of mercury thermometer at 0 degree centigrade is V naught. So this is volume of bulb here. And this bulb is completely filled at 0 degree. And the cross-section area of the capillary, it is connected to a capillary. And capillary is, and has a cross-section area A. The coefficient of linear expansion of glass is alpha. And volumetric expansion coefficient of mercury is gamma. And mercury is just filled at the bulb at 0 degree centigrade. So at 0 degree centigrade, it just comes up to here. What would be the length of mercury column at T degree centigrade? So again, so this is a figure at T is equal to 0 degree centigrade. What would happen as the temperature increases? So see, what does a common sense say? As the temperature increases, two things will happen. So just see, let's see, they do one by one. So as the temperature rises, what is the thing it will lead to? Increase in temperature. It will lead to increase in volume of, glass bulb. So there'll be increase in volume of the glass bulb. And there will also increase in volume of glass bulb. And how much will be increase of volume of glass bulb be equal to? Increase in volume of the glass bulb we have to calculate. See, every time we calculate delta V is equal to original volume into gamma into delta change in temperature. So this will be equal to original volume into coefficient of volume expansion of glass bulb. Coefficient of volume expansion I have to write 3 alpha. And change in temperature is T. Thus increase in volume of the glass bulb. Similarly, what will be the increase in volume of mercury? Increase in volume of mercury. Increase in volume of mercury, delta V will be equal to, again, original volume was V naught. And here directly gamma value is given. This is T. So if this volume, if this gamma is greater than, if gamma is greater than 3 alpha, then what will happen? Mercury will expand more than glass bulb. So if it expands, extra volume of mercury will go into the this capillary column. So what is this volume capillary? What is the volume this will contain? This capillary will contain volume equal to difference in expansion of mercury minus bulk, and for which we also use a term called coefficient of apparent volume expansion. So volume of mercury in capillary is equal to, we also use the term, it is equal to apparent increase in volume of mercury. Real volume is in real expansion, not this. It is apparent increase in volume of mercury, and for which we also use a formula which is equal to original volume into coefficient of apparent volumetric expansion into T. And that's why we use, again, I'm reading this. What is this apparent volumetric expansion? It is gamma of the liquid, which is mercury here, minus gamma of the container material, which is 3 alpha here. So this is the increase in volume. So this is the volume it will occupy, and this volume has to be equal to area of cross section of the capillary tube into, we need to find the coefficient, the length of the mercury column into length of the mercury column. So this L here, so what we notice here, if by this whole arrangement, if A is very small, L becomes large. That's how the capillary section, that's how the thermometer works. A small change in volume, it occupies a tube which has a small cross section. Since the cross section area is small, even a small change in volume results in significant length it occupies in the capillary tube here. And second thing, what you notice here, L is proportional to T here. So by whole arrangement, what we have done, we have found a way to find the length the mercury occupies in the capillary tube is proportional to temperature, and thus the principle behind measurement of any quantity. What we measure here, the thermometer does not measure temperature. Thermometer measures change in length of the mercury occupied in capillary tube here. If the length changes, since the length is proportional to temperature, so if this is the position at theta is equal to 0, and at theta is equal to, say, when temperature is 50 degree, it reaches up to this height here. So this is the capillary length at 0 degree, and this is the capillary length at 50 degree. Since length is proportional to temperature, in between, if I make 50 division, each division will correspond to 1 degree change in temperature. That's the principle behind which thermometer works. So we find any quantity which varies linearly with temperature, we can measure that quantity to measure temperature. So we measure something else which is easier to measure. So this is the principle behind Kepler, and we'll come across this topic a little bit later also. Okay. Yes, Alan?
Sir, the capillary area will be constant.
Yes, basically in this case, what are we assuming here? We are assuming the capillary area to be constant. You're very right. Very rightly you said. This is something, yes, we are assuming the capillary area to remain constant. See, basically what we do here, see, you very rightly said, even that also introduced an error here. In this case, for it to work better, ideally, what kind of material we should choose to see? If a capillary area is not constant, it introduces a small error. How do we minimize this error? We minimize the error by choosing a material which has a very low value of alpha. So typically, why the glass is chosen? One is, of course, transparent, and second thing is if alpha value is much smaller compared to mercury. But very good question. This is how it will appear, and that's how it works. Length of mercury column is equal to delta V. What is delta V? It's apparent volumetric expansion. It's not real expansion. Okay. Next question is apparent coefficient of expansion. So this is, I thought, previous question. I hope all of you got a good sense of what does apparent volumetric expansion mean. Apparent volume expansion is involved when there's a liquid and a container. Okay, so let's look at, and which is equal to gamma of the liquid minus gamma of the container. So let's look at one more question, which is based on application of same concept. Apparent coefficient of expansion of liquid when heated in copper vessel is C. Okay, so what is this case here? The first case, what does C corresponds to? There's a copper vessel here. The vessel is in form of, this is copper vessel, and then liquid, some liquid is placed in this. There's some liquid here, and in this liquid here, yes, so we raise the temperature, and when we raise the temperature, we measure apparent volumetric expansion. What is apparent volumetric expansion? Apparent volume delta V will be equal to delta H into cross section of the container, original container. So this is C, and when it is heated in a silver vessel, it is S. So whenever it is in a container, what we do here, we take apparent coefficient of volumetric expansion, and apparent coefficient of volumetric expansion is gamma of the liquid minus gamma of the container material. But many times, if gamma of copper container is not given, coefficient of linear expansion is given. So how do we do it here? So in case of coefficient of linear expansion is given, so coefficient of volumetric expansion is 3 times coefficient of linear expansion. That's all we need to use here. So coefficient of volumetric apparent volume expansion is gamma of the liquid minus gamma of the container. First case, container is a copper. So in this case, gamma L minus gamma of copper. But what is given here, and C is apparent, C, very clearly it is given apparent coefficient of expansion, C. And what else is mentioned here? A is the linear coefficient of expansion of copper. So gamma C is 3 times A. That's all the substitution is here. Next, the container is aluminum. So if in case of aluminum container, coefficient of apparent volume expansion is S here, and the container is aluminum, so it will be gamma L minus gamma A here. And gamma A can be written, since the coefficient involves linear coefficient of expansion of silver, we substitute gamma A is equal to 3 alpha A. So these are two equations, and by equating gamma L value, we can find coefficient of this value of alpha A in terms of other quantity. Okay, some more question on thermal expansion, and this glass vase contains mercury at room temperature, and this is very common. See, where all of you, when you coffee, tea, all those flasks, you have, whenever you fill up a flask, you find when you close the flask here, it becomes airtight, and the flask will contain this. When you fill up with any liquid, we use the flask for tea, coffee, but let's say in this case it's given as mercury. So there's some volume of mercury which is filled up in a flask. So there are two things inside the flask. So volume of flask is occupied by air volume and mercury volume. So what is said here, it contains some mercury at room temperature. This is filled up at room temperature. It is found at different temperature. The volume of air inside the flask remain constant. So this is at 0 degrees centigrade. And at room temperature, this is at a room temperature. And again, at some other temperature, what would happen? Any other temperature, slightly the volume of flask will change, and volume of mercury also may change. So at any temperature T, what is found, the volume of air remains constant. That's what the question is. So very simple, if you understand the wording of the word. So why is volume of air constant? So if we understand the very simple thing, volume of air is nothing but volume of container minus volume of mercury. So if volume of air remains constant, it will remain constant only if change in volume of the container, whatever is change in the volume of container, if same change is there in the volume of mercury, the volume of air will remain constant. So basically air is something, so air volume is something A minus B. If the quantity has to remain constant, delta A and delta B has to be equal. So that's what we have to do. So delta V, these two have to be equal. That's the condition. And what is delta VC here? Delta VC is volume of the container into gamma of the container into delta T, change in temperature. That will be change in volume of container. What will change in volume of mercury here? Volume of mercury into gamma of mercury into delta T. If these conditions are met, both will have equal change in volume, and if they have equal change in volume, volume of air will remain constant. Rest all is simple substitution. What is the find the volume of flask here? If you substitute, we find the volume of flask here. Because volume of mercury is given. Only one thing unknown is VC here. Volume of container, volume of flask. Okay. So volume of air is equal to volume of flask minus air. If air has to remain same, delta V of flask and mercury must be equal. Okay. So this also, I think, just if you recall, today the first question we dealt with is the length of the rod remaining same. How does length of the rod remain same? The length of the rod, first question when we did today was something like this. Each rod or any material at a given temperature, it has a natural dimension. And the natural dimension, it also, and the natural dimension it has, it changes with different temperature. The first case we take linear dimension. So linear dimension, if we increase the temperature, linear dimension changes. If the linear dimension is not allowed to change, it will exert a force. So force will come into play. So change in dimension produced by change in temperature and by force must be equal and opposite. This is also very similar here. So this was linear dimension. This is about volumetric dimension. So if we have a cube here, let's understand here. So there's a cube at 0 degrees centigrade. It has some natural volume. So there's a cube, and at 0 degrees centigrade, it has certain dimension, linear dimension, and it has certain volume, 0 degrees centigrade. So now we apply some pressure here. If we apply pressure, what kind of strain it will suffer? If we apply pressure onto the cube, we can apply pressure by keeping in a pressure chamber, or we can take it to certain depth below water also. The external pressure P is applied on the cube so that it is compressed from all sides. When we apply pressure, this situation pertains to bulk modulus. The bulk modulus will come into picture. And what is bulk modulus equal to? So when we apply a pressure, it leads to something we leave in bulk modulus is equal to minus delta P delta V by V. So its dimension will change, its volume will change. And this material has a coefficient of linear expansion alpha. So because of application of pressure, it will shrink. The question is, if a coefficient of linear expansion is alpha, if we want to bring the cube to original shape by heating, by what temperature should what should be increase in temperature? So again, say this something similar. You notice the similarity between the two. Here it was linear dimension. It can be shaped, its length can be shaped, kept the same if they produce equal and opposite effect. Here also they can produce equal and opposite effect. So when we change the temperature, so there's a change in volume. This change in volume delta V by V is equal to minus delta P by B. This is due to pressure effect. And due to change in temperature also, what is fractional change in volume? Fractional change in volume due to increase in temperature is gamma delta T. And if gamma is not given, alpha is given, it is equal to 3 alpha delta T. So this also means question, and so easy question. Basically what we do, by what degree should be raised. See this net change has to be 0. So net change in volume has to be 0. So result of these two, delta P by B plus 3 alpha delta T is equal to 0. You will get the value of delta T. So this also notice of many of the questions which have come are extremely simple ones. So fractional change in reduction due to pressure is equal to fraction increase in volume due to heating. That's all this question is. Okay, this question, let's look at this. This question, you notice here, there are several questions related to expansion, which may involve two different concepts. So in this case, moment the word floating has come and effect of change in temperature. So which are the two concepts coming into which are relevant here? One is the thermal property, and the second is fluid property here. So in this case, cube of coefficient of linear expansion alpha S is floating in a bath containing liquid of coefficient of volume expansion gamma L. Let's understand what will happen in it is floating. So there's a liquid here, and this liquid has a gamma L, coefficient of volume expansion of liquid is gamma L, and a cube is floating. We are taking a side view. If side view, the cube is floating, it has is equal per dimension perpendicular to the plane of figure. and this cube has a coefficient of linear expansion is given alpha s. Okay, it has certain density, and okay, so what will happen here? So in this case, you understand moment we work come across word float. Float implies equilibrium. Floating means it is in a state of equilibrium, and in equilibrium, what has to happen? The weight of the cube is equal to weight of liquid displaced. And what is the weight of liquid displaced? Weight of liquid displaced is equal to gamma of the liquid, density of the liquid into volume submerged into G. So notice here, so why is, when we change temperature, just think of what are the things will change and why this submergence may change here. So when we change the temperature here, effect of change in temperature. When we change the temperature, will the weight change here? Weight will not change. So whenever object is floating, the weight will remain same. But what are things will change? Let's understand. If it is cube here, I could have written volume submerged as something like this. Volume submerged is equal to rho L. This is the height of submergence H. And if the side of cube is L, how would I write what is volume submerged? I would have written volume submerged would have been rho L into H into L into G here. When we change here, what are the changes will come? As the temperature changes, see the rho L will change. What will the rho L be now? It will become rho L dash. We have to change density at that temperature. And the dimension of cube also will change. And accordingly, H also will change. So this is something, whenever we change temperature, this will change and this will change, accordingly H will change. So let's write, if we write what will the new equation here? So rho L into Vs, which is equal to rho L into HL, will be equal to rho L dash H dash L dash. And what is rho L dash here? Density of the liquid with increase in temperature. What is density of liquid with increase in temperature? 1 minus gamma of the liquid delta theta into H dash. And what will the L dash be equal to? Sorry, I think L square here. My bad here. And this is L square here. So this will be L dash square. So L dash square is nothing but, so L dash square will be equal to what? L square will be equal to, what should I write here? 1 plus 2 alpha delta theta. So that's the expression. And if we simplify this expression, the right hand side can also be written as rho L into L square 1 minus gamma L delta theta. I'm just cross multiplying these two parts, and gamma T plus 2 alpha delta theta. Why I'm not written cross multiplication of these two? Why I'm not written the third term here? Because this term, when you multiply, these terms can be neglected. So this becomes my H dash. So what I notice here, what is H dash equal to? H dash will be equal to 1 divided by 1 minus gamma L minus 2 alpha delta T. So it may increase and decrease depending on the relative term. So when would H dash remain same? You notice from here, when would H dash remain same? Which condition? What is the condition for depth at which depth of submergence remains same here? What will the condition for depth of submergence remain same? Gamma of the liquid has to be equal to twice the coefficient of linear expansion of the material of the cube. Jaideep, are you following this?
Yes, sir.
You followed? Why this third term I am not written by cross multiplied?
Sir, that's negligible, sir.
That's negligible. So all terms are clear.
Yes, sir.
If I ask now, second question now, can you tell me the condition? What will be the condition for H to decrease? What we find here, as we raise the temperature, the cube comes up slightly. So what is the condition for cube to rise compared to the liquid level? Can you think of a condition for H to decrease or cube to rise? Jaideep, can you answer that question as well? When would H decrease? H decrease means what? It will rise up. So if the question
sir.
comes, I take a second question. When would H decrease? So from here, can you tell what is the condition for H to decrease here?
Not that clear, sir.
Not that clear? Okay. Now, in this formula, this itself, have you understood where from it has come from? This expression, can you arrive at this expression on your own? Jaideep, if I ask you to do it, if I just close the screen and ask you to do the whole thing on it, can you do this one or not?
Sir, not that clear, sir.
Not that clear. Okay. So, Tejas, is that clear to you or not so much clear?
Yes, sir. It's clear for me, sir.
Okay. Tell me how did we arrive at this? Is basically if I come across how do if a question is with the change in temperature.
Yes, sir.
If a gamma value is given, L value is given, density of the liquid given, all terms are given. You have to calculate H dash. How would I calculate new depth of submergence H dash?
Yes, sir. First,
Tell
we
me
have,
how
to
would
find,
you,
first we have to find the effect of temperature, sir.
Yes.
What we have to understand the effect of temperature.
Hmm.
We can say that H dash will increase, L dash, and there'll be change in the density of the liquid also, right, sir?
Yes. Basically, moment we see float, I am just writing the condition for floating. Now, what is the
Yes,
condition for floating? Weight is equal
Weight.
to density of the liquid, volume of
Density of-
submergence into G.
Yes.
And volume
Weight
is
of
broken in
liquid.
two parts, is it not? What is volume part is composed of? Volume part is composed of cross-section area and height.
To the height. Yes, sir.
Then what
Yes,
you have
and-
done? If
And the weight will remain same. And
weight is same.
Yes.
So product of these three terms before and product of these terms after the change in temperature will remain same.
yes, sir.
Then
We find the new values of density.
yes. So
and,
these are function of temperature.
L
This
dash,
term
yes.
is function of temperature.
temperature.
This also is function of temperature.
Yes, sir.
So that's what you have written. Is there any difficulty in writing that part? Gamma is equal to 1, the density is 1 minus gamma, length dimension is 1 plus 2 alpha into
2 alpha
delta.
definitely.
Well,
Yes.
L square. I have taken
That's
area.
Yes.
Jaideep, are you clear? I have taken 1 plus 2 alpha here.
Yes, understood.
Area. No, so basically, once I write this expression, I get at H dash. If it has to rise, this term in the denominator, this term, if it is positive, it will rise. Because if this term is positive, if gamma L minus 2 alpha is positive, it means whole term will be less than 1. And if whole term in the denominator is less than 1, H dash will be greater than H here. Jaideep, is this clearer now?
Yes, sir, clear.
Huh? Bhageshri,
Yes, sir.
little clear or not clear at all?
Clear, sir.
Clear. So whenever we come across float, we can solve step by step and we can do that. So what are the key points here? Weight of the cube, hence the weight of liquid displaced will remain the same. With increase in temperature, density of the liquid will decrease and hence the volume displaced must increase here. And the depth of submersion remains same, but the cross section of submerged part will increase. So they offset each other. This is the point we have to underline, weight of the liquid displaced, and we write those expressions. Okay. So there's another way I could have written. So this is one detailed way I have done. Just see that whether this also is entered. Weight of the liquid displaced is equal to density of liquid into L square into depth of the liquid. And if this is equal to delta P by P plus 2 delta by L has to be equal to 0 in this case. If this has remained same, and from here also I get same expression in slightly different way. So I have used this two ways I have solved. See whether both are understood here. This is one way I have explained now, and this other way also we can write. Weight has to remain constant. If weight has to remain constant, yes, its derivative also has to be equal to 0. So delta P by P plus 2 delta L by L. So that's what I have written. And delta rho by rho. What is delta rho by rho? Is equal to minus gamma into delta theta, gamma L, and 2 alpha s. So this another way. This is slightly faster way. So all of you understand this one. This is much more. This can be used only in a specific case when the depth is not changing. If depth is going to change, it's better to use this term here. Okay. Using this technique, Vignesh, can you tell me, using this equation also, can we easily answer what is the condition for depth of submergence to increase? Using this form, Vignesh, can you answer this question? See, this one we have equated it to 0. using
So like,
this, yeah. Can we tell using this similar way, can we find a
So
very
like-
quick way? Yeah.
so I can answer from the previous expression, I think.
No, but from this way also, can you obtain same expression? Weight is constant.
Yes.
See here, why I equated, since D was constant, I have not taken derivative. If D also was changing here, or maybe I can use H here. So I would have written expression as D rho by rho plus 2 delta L by L plus D into, let me use H here, dH by H is equal to 0. If this
So that term should be positive.
yeah, so understood. So both ways, this also is, we can do that way. Jaideep, have you followed this?
Yes, sir.
You understood difference. In this case, depth was constant. That's why I taken this change in D was 0. And when it
Yeah,
is
for
not
height
zero,
to
you can
increase,
use
it should
this
be
one.
positive.
Yeah, okay. So any question, because this also is a little tricky part here. Ahlad, is that clear?
Just have a doubt in the gamma part.
Gamma part, okay. What is the doubt you have?
Coefficient of volume, right? So when this happens, we take the area of the bar to be constant and length will increase, right?
No, basically, in terms of gamma part here, the gamma part, we are talking about only density. So density, but so what is the doubt here? When we talk about gamma part, how would density of liquid change here? Does it have to do anything with the cross section? Not at all.
So that the volume of the liquid will increase. Right?
Volume, that's why density is changing. No? So basically what we are calculating for liquid also, what we calculate, I think again, you are going back here. What is density equal to? Density is equal to mass by volume. So when we check what is d rho by rho is nothing, dv by v. That's what we have done. That's why it comes into gamma delta theta. And that's why this change in density is because of change in volume. Okay. Let's see that part is clear. Now coming to, there's a small thing which was I didn't finish in previous class. We did 3 different elastic modulus. What are the 3 elastic modulus? Young's modulus. Then we did shear modulus. And then there was bulk modulus. This is related to longitudinal strain. This is related to shear strain. And shear strain with the change in dimension, you know, so you should remember the figure in mind. And this is volumetric strain. And one more thing related to this parameter is called Poisson's ratio. I think the Poisson ratio is more appropriate term. See, it makes common sense here. Suppose we had this piece of rod here. If we apply a force, this is dotted line indicates extension of the rod. So when length has increased, very likely we'll find the lateral side also there'll be decrease. And this we can very easily notice in case you stretch a piece of rubber band. So when the length gets elongated, the cross-section area of the rubber band also decreases. And this kind of phenomena is observed in most material. So Poisson ratio is, so there's a fractional change in linear dimension and there's a fractional change in the lateral dimension. And the ratio of the two strain, when the fractional change is nothing but a strain. So Poisson ratio is lateral strain by longitudinal strain. And so that's the Poisson ratio. It deals with those two. So when we talk about what is longitudinal strain, the longitudinal strain doesn't necessarily mean the longest dimension. Longitudinal is defined in terms of direction in which force or stress is applied. So if I apply a force like this along the this dimension, just imagine there's a cube here. So this one has one dimension longer here. If I have a cube, if I apply a force on along x direction, so this face also uniformly apply a force, and the back face also apply a force F here. And both direction I pull apart by force F. If and this force is applied uniformly over the cross section. So in this case, x direction is longitudinal direction, y and z direction are lateral directions. So lateral direction, longitudinal direction based on direction of force. So if the tensile stress is expressed in x direction and stress is sigma x, which is force by area, we are assuming whatever force is applied across the cross section is uniform. So this will produce a strain equal to stress by y. This is what we had done. This is normal Young's modulus. If tensile stress is applied, then longitudinal strain epsilon x is equal to longitudinal stress by y. It will also change lateral dimension. The lateral implies perpendicular to direction of stress. So in this case, lateral strain. So suppose it was a circular rod here, cylindrical rod. Lateral strain I can write as delta R by R. The lateral strain will be equal to mu times of longitudinal strain with the negative sign. Why is the negative sign? If this tends to increase here, if this force is tensile, length will increase, this will be positive, this strain will be negative. So mu times delta L, and this is something what we can write if it is a cylindrical section. If the section is rectangular, we can define two dimension, length dimension is L, and breadth and depth and B and H here. So both lateral dimension, the strain will be same. So delta B by B is equal to delta L by H is equal to mu times delta L by L, which is longitudinal strain. And mu value, if it is 0.1, what does mu equal to 0.1 implies? Let's try understand. If mu1 is equal to 0.1, it implies if due to a force, I have a longitudinal strain of 3%. So length has increased by a fraction of 0.003. The lateral dimension will shrink by 0.1 times of 3%. So lateral dimension will shrink. So delta R by R will be equal to minus 0.03%. That's what it means. So Poisson ratio is a definition. It's very simple. And let's look at very simple application also. So Poisson ratio of certain material is 0.3. Longitudinal stress so much is produced in a uniform route of the material. What is the percentage change in volume? How do you calculate percentage change in volume if longitudinal strain is given here? So this also, what does the volume implies here? Percentage change in volume. The volume is length dimension and two lateral dimensions. The force applied in BLR is the lateral dimension. So delta V by V equal to, so fractional change in volume, delta L by L, longitudinal strain, plus 2 delta B by V, twice the lateral strain. It will come in two dimension, and delta L by L is equal to minus Newton and delta B by V. If I substitute, very easily I can find volumetric strain will be equal to 1 minus 2 mu into delta L by L. Sorry, I have this error here. The delta, I have written other way around. The delta B by B is equal to mu minus mu times delta L by L. So minus something delta B by, so I substitute delta B by B here. It becomes minus mu delta L by L. So this is the volumetric strain. So volume strain is 1 minus 2 mu times longitudinal strain. But in this case, force is applied only in one direction. We can have one more variation here. Lateral strain you can calculate, and volume strain also can be calculated. That's okay. Percentage change in volume can be easily calculated. So percentage change 1 minus 2 mu, very easy. Let's take one more variation of the same. In this case, tensile force, we not only one direction. What happens if force is applied in two directions? So for this force applied in X direction, force is F, and tensile force is trying to elongate. This also we apply a force along Y direction. So two direction force are applied. If we have to calculate strain in particular direction, when Y is given and Poisson's ratio is given, and percentage change in volume has to be calculated. So whenever you have to do question like this also we can use principle of superposition. We can take effect of one force at a time. If it is one force at a time, it becomes very easy, similar to previous question. So if we take force only acting in X direction, so what we assume here, force is acting only in the X direction. X becomes longitudinal direction. So what is the strain in X direction? Is stress force by L square, a cross section area, by Y. This is strain in X direction. If this is fractional change in length in X direction, fractional change in two perpendicular direction, Y direction, Z direction, will be minus mu times epsilon X. So this becomes strain in Y direction, Z direction due to force in X direction. Similar way, I can calculate force is now acting along Y direction. And if it is tensile, it will be positive. When it is acting in the Y direction, it becomes 2F. The force is 2F. Cross section L square by Y. And again, I can calculate strain in two mutually perpendicular direction, epsilon X and epsilon Z. This will be equal to, again, minus mu times epsilon Y here. So again, we substitute here. So we have all the terms here. So now we add those two up. So what is strain in x direction? Strain in x direction is this plus this. What is strain in y direction? This term plus this direction. What is strain in z direction? Is this plus this. We can obtain strain in any direction. And if I have to find what is the percentage change in volume? So percentage change in volume, fractional change in volume will be sum of all three, epsilon x plus epsilon y plus epsilon z. We can calculate that also. So not only if force is acting in one direction, if force is acting in two directions also, we should be able to calculate the strains along each direction and volumetric strain. Okay, yes, Devignesh?
So to calculate the percentage change in volume, should we include the due to the force in both x and y direction?
Yes. So what is the percentage change? Percentage, if I had to write what is will be delta V by V. So delta V by is basically volume is equal to is length in x direction, length in y direction, length in z direction. So delta V by delta V will be equal to delta Lx. And what are these things? This is nothing but a strain. So this is something epsilon x plus epsilon y. Any difference?
So here each dimension changes due to both the forces, right?
Yes. So we have to take, that's what I'm saying. I have to say when I take epsilon x, what do I substitute in terms of, let me write what is epsilon x. Epsilon x is equal to f by L square y. And due to this direction is negative, minus mu times 2f divided by L square y. Similarly, what is epsilon y equal to? Epsilon y also will take, because superposition, we have to take both together. Epsilon y will be equal to 2f divided by L square y minus mu into f by L square y. Yes. So that is what about Poisson's ratio is. Okay. And after this, we move on to something called thermometry. Thermometry, as the name says, this is not a subtopic, also very small thing. Measurement of temperature. And through one example of volumetric expansion, we already discussed how does it happen. So we have seen that this kind of, we have done one question similar to this. So what we notice here, there's a bulb here, a glass tube, and typically we choose a material which has a low expansion. So in the glass tube, so I have three identical glass tube, and assume that this is a factory where we manufacture thermometer. So how do we prepare a thermometer? We fill up with all identical tubes, filled up with identical volume of mercury. And after this, something earlier, there are no markings here. Now I keep all these thermometers at a standard temperature. The standard temperature is something I keep at a freezing temperature, freezing ice. And freezing ice basically, which is kept at 0 degree, which is freezing. See, if I keep ice can have a temperature which is below 0 degree. But if I have a uniform mix, if I have a mix of ice as well as water, this important point, it comes later also. If I have a mix which contains ice as well as water, both coexist. If ice and water are present together in a container which is thermally isolated, but it's not losing heat or not gaining heat, if both coexist, it implies that temperature must be only 0 degree. Because both coexist only at 0 degree. And this something is important even in case of calorimetry. So I have a vessel like this, which ensures the temperature is 0 degree. So when I keep all this temperature, the mercury is up to this point here. So this is the lowest level. So I have this lower fixed point. So I would mark lower fixed point here, no marking here. Similarly, we keep in a boiling water bath, and which is 100 degree in centigrade. But this is something, so this, but I'm not defining temperature now. So we use two reference points. One is lower fixed point, one is upper fixed point. And these are two standards, and typically standard uses are freezing point and boiling point. And after I have done, what are the scales? All thermometer scales They give some number to the lower fixed point, they give some value to upper fixed point, and divide in certain number of divisions. That becomes a scale. So what has Fahrenheit has done? He did, okay, this number, I have to give some value to this reading here, this fixed point. So if I give a number of 32 here and give a number of 212 here, so in between I make 180 divisions. Since thermometer length is proportional to temperature, if I make 180 divisions, mark this as 32, mark as 212, it becomes a Fahrenheit thermometer. In case of centigrade thermometer, I mark this as 0. The lower fixed point is given a value of 0. Upper fixed point is given a value of 100. And in between 100 divisions, it becomes a different scale. But so whenever we measure a temperature, so when I'm measuring a temperature, so suppose at now I want to measure temperature of some object, some liquid, which is some unknown temperature. If I keep all three of them into the same vessel at same temperature, all will reach to the same height. Height will be, though they may have different reading, it will read different value, it may read a different value, it may read a different value, but all will rise to the same height. The fractional height will be same if they rise to the same height at any temperature T. Now this height divided by this height ratio for all three will be same. So what is this height ratio? This is something reading at T minus the lower fixed point gives you this length. So this reading RT minus R at lower fixed point gives you length of mercury column between these 2 points. And if I divide by reading at upper fixed point minus reading at lower fixed point, this is proportional to total length. So all three thermometers, if I take this ratio, it will come equal. And that becomes a constant. And that's what we use for design of thermometer. And that's also used for conversion from one unit to other. So in case of suppose it is centigrade. So when we have some reading here at temperature T, I have a reading RC here. In Fahrenheit, I have temperature RF here. But RC minus my lower fixed point, RC minus 0. And so okay, this should be upper fixed point. Upper fixed point, and this also should be upper fixed point. So RC minus lower fixed point and upper fixed point minus lower fixed point. So if this reading by 0 minus 0 divided by 100 minus 0 will be equal to Fahrenheit reading minus 32 divided by 212 by 32. This ratios will remain same, and that's what we use for conversion. So when we convert from centigrade to Fahrenheit, what my conversion is? C reading minus 0 divided by upper fixed point 100 minus 0 becomes equal to Fahrenheit reading minus 32, and divided by upper fixed point is the minus lower fixed point 180. That's how we convert from centigrade to Fahrenheit. But similar conversion can be done for any hypothetical scale also. So we'll do something so very similar, and this is the logic here. The ratio of length we are equating. If you understand this point, no need to memorize this formula. So this is, and this thermometer, we use the property that length of mercury is proportional to temperature. Any other physical parameter which is proportional to temperature can be used for measurement of temperature. So like ideal gas equation. What is ideal gas equation? PV is equal to nRT. So if I take a fixed volume of gas, N is constant, and if I keep volume constant, the pressure becomes directly proportional to temperature. So ratio of pressure will give you ratio of temperature. So by measuring pressure, measurement of pressure is easier compared to measurement of temperature. See, if you think that temperature measurement is easy, but most of the time we are not measuring temperature. The temperature is nothing but sum of kinetic energy of all particles, reflection of kinetic energy, which is not easy to measure. So we measure something else. So in case of linear measurement of pressure at constant volume. So if we maintain the volume of gas constant, and as the temperature changes, we allow only pressure to change, the ratio of pressure or pressure reading will indicate temperature. So if we have a pressure reading at 100 degrees centigrade, if I have pressure reading at 0 degrees centigrade, in between I make 100 divisions, those pressure readings will actually indicate temperature. So whenever you use something like this, any quantity which varies linearly with temperature can be used for measurement temperature. Okay. So we'll see some example of the same. I'll stop here and we'll continue from here in the next after 10 minutes break. Okay, so just have a quick break and we'll